Before we start the episode, I'd like to apologize for the audio quality of Derek's mic. He is filming from Arrakis undercover, trying to get Zendaya to remove the restraining order. So please become patrons, donate for a better mic for Derek to use while he's undercover. Enjoy. Welcome back to My Mythical Meta, your gaming podcast that's actually a secret friendship podcast. My name is Travis, and I am joined by everyone. The entire team is back. All of the metapods are hardening. I'm joined by my brother Benjamin.
Hello.
My good friend Derek.
That's me.
And my good friend Randy.
Heyo.
Everyone is here. How was y'all's 4 weeks? Or what seems like 4 weeks. Seems like it's been forever.
It's been good here. Me and my girlfriend adopted a new cat, named him Mr. Business.
Oh,
Nice.
that's
So
awesome.
now we have Sirius and Mr. Business.
Together, they're serious business.
I love it.
Attorneys at law.
That's right. Do you have pictures of Mr. Business?
I can get you some.
Okay, I'll make sure to put them in the video. How about you, Derek? What you been up to?
Just living La Vida Loca. Still been out running. I broke my new personal speed record for my mile.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah, I got about 4 more seconds to go to get back to my high school speed.
Dude, that's great.
Or approximately my high school speed, I don't know. But 4 more seconds to get in the ballpark, I suppose.
Wow.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, really good.
Benjamin?
Well, I just finished my 3rd book of the year, and I've started an audiobook and a regular paper book. So I've got 4 and 5. I'm hopeful that within a month, I can meet my 6-book goal for the year.
Dude, it's not even May.
Yeah.
And you're on books 4 and 5.
Yeah. This goal has been great. A new resurgence. It's been a long time since I really sat down and read books, and it's been a good year. I'm glad we did
Been
that
a good year
episode.
overall.
It has been a pretty good year.
So, Benjamin, what are the books you've read so far?
Okay.
If you feel like sharing.
Sure. So the first one was the Steins Gate manga, the complete
Right.
manga that I bought at, what was that convention we went to in November?
Onicon?
Onicon, yes. And I listened to Dune Messiah, the second Dune book. Excellent.
Was it good?
Yes. Very, very good. And then I read Wanted, a Superhero to Save the World. You know, a young adult book. I was just pre-reading it to see if I would want to pass it on to my kids, and it was pretty good. You know, fun. Not
Nice.
super heavy or anything. And then now I have started A Truly Remarkable Thing.
The book is called An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. I loved A Truly Remarkable Thing.
Yeah, it's your book.
Wait, is it the second or the first one?
I don't know. It's your book that...
Okay, if it's mine, then it's the first one.
Okay, you loaned it to Momo. She brought it to, I think it was Ezra's birthday party.
Yes.
And you left without it. And so it's just been sitting around in my house for months. And I said, you know what? I might as well read it.
Dude, it's amazing. It's so good.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool so far. And then the other one I've started is Never Split the Difference, which is a negotiating book.
Ooh, a little nonfiction self-improvement.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. I feel like there's more in there somewhere that I've read, but I can't think of it, so I'm just going to say that's what I've read.
Sounds great. Well, make sure you keep giving us reviews of the good stuff you read.
Okay.
I have got some pretty cool updates, y'all. First, my house is basically finished.
Yay.
Yeah.
Woo!
When are you going to have us over to play?
Very soon, hopefully.
Good.
We're going to need to rearrange furniture and stuff like that, but basically there's 2 things that still need to be painted, and they're going to be coming tomorrow or Saturday to do that and get it all finished up.
Yay.
Yay! Very, very excited. I love my new upstairs room. I love my new living room downstairs. I love my new outdoor patio. It's basically a whole new house. It's really, really amazing.
That's awesome.
I also have a couple new side hustles in the works. First, I applied online to a AI training company.
Oh, fun.
Basically, you answer questions as if you are an AI, and the AI scrubs those responses in order to learn. In order to learn what good responses look like.
My guess is that that's what all AI is. You type something into
That's probably.
into Chat GPT, and then they send it to someone doing an AI research, and then they just give me the human answer.
That's probably true. But I mean, how would you get it back instantaneously though?
Hey, time machine.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I passed the 3 tests in order to get hired, and then I did the trainings, and then I have started doing responses already.
Wow. Awesome.
Cool.
Making some moolah.
Whenever Skynet rises,
They'll
let
kill him.
Travis live.
Right.
And we thank Travis for his contribution.
I'll kill you last.
Yeah, exactly.
Just make sure
And
you
it
don't
was-
say, "Are you Sarah Connor?" That's when we know.
I am the Terminator. Yeah, they modeled the Terminator after me.
Right.
This impressive physique. My last side hustle is that I got a part-time job at a game store.
Woohoo!
How
Get that
ironic.
Woo- Woohoo! Capitalism.
You make me sick.
I know. 1 shift a week to stock shelves and stuff.
You're stocking shelves. You're not interacting with the gamers and stuff.
Oh no, I am like salesman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Like it's a retail position.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm just saying, as soon as they make me clean a bathroom, I might be out of there.
Well, we'll see.
As soon as one of those like sweaty gamers blows up the commode,
Like, nah.
I might have to be like, nah,
No,
this
I
was
didn't find
fun
it.
and all, but I think I'm out.
Are you allowed to shout them out on the show or no?
Well, they made it very clear that I am not allowed to talk about Eldorado Gaming in their store, and so I am
get a
going to make
shout-out
it
here.
very clear that I am not going to give them a shout out here. We don't want any conflict of interest.
Sure. All right.
I mean, obviously I'll talk to them some more about it. We can get some mutual advertising happening, but yeah, they were very, very clear.
I feel like when we were there, like I didn't really see much crossover, if you know what I mean. Like they had some cheap plastic.
It's
dice.
really just the dice.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
like
but
and they just do like plastic, just normal
chess
resin
X.
gaming dice and stuff. Yeah, just normal chess
Sets.
X sets. But
Yeah.
Okay.
so
Just-
anyway,
Just save that money and Japan spending money.
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm doing, is saving up for Japan and contributing to my household again.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right, we have got a special episode today. We're going to start out with our Patreon shout out, and we're going to shout out our patron David.
Yay, David.
Been here since the beginning. We thank you so much for your continued patronage, David, especially sticking with us through a dry spell without episodes. Today's topic is for you. David has reached out to us and asked a little more about building decks for Magic the Gathering. And so today's episode is for him. You too can become a patron and send us episode ideas by going to patreon.com/mymythicalmeta. Benjamin, what's the first perk that people get from joining our
You
Patreon?
join our Patreon and you get an exclusive 20% off coupon for EldoradoGaming.com. Go there, check out the shiny metal dice, the play mats, and other gaming accessories, and you get an exclusive 20% off of our already low prices. You can get our premium gaming accessories shipped right to your door.
Randy, what's the other perk they get from joining our Patreon?
Early and ad-free content. You will always be able to get the episodes without any ads forever, as long as you're a patron.
That's right. And of course, you'll get access to the My Mythical Meta Discord server, where we chat about games and where we play games together. Lastly, surprise perk from Derek. Here we go.
If I don't get a Patreon subscription, I will spoil one popular show a week until my demands are met, starting today. So you know I'm a man of my word. I did not care for the ending of Game of Thrones. Left much to be desired. Let that be a lesson. Next week, who knows? Maybe it's the new Fallout show.
Y'all better contribute. Get in if you don't want your favorite shows spoiled. Even though, Derek, I think Game of Thrones ended 4 years ago?
And was universally not like the ending.
Derek said, I thought that was new.
Wait, what?
There is a new Game of Thrones show out, if you can get your hands on the scripts for that.
I did see that they put the House of the Dragon episodes comes out like in June, I think.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I look forward to that coming out again.
Pretty fun.
All right, before we get to today's episode, we do have...
The Eldorado Ascension Classic.
Hello, Commander. I do my killing before breakfast. 7 o'clock. 8 o'clock. I do my killing after breakfast. I know Kung Fu.
Come on, stop trying to hit me and hit me.
You throw another move at me, and I'm gonna lose it.
Allied to good! Nightmare to you!
We have got a bit of a shakeup, y'all, is happening in the Ascension Classic. Now, Derek is still in the lead with 86 points. However, bad luck or the yips?
Conspiracy.
Derek only got 6 points last session over the course of 3 games.
Womp,
Only 6
womp,
points?
womp.
Derek, what is going on?
Well, I got 3 people trying to make me lose, and 2 of the games I didn't do anything.
Yeah, being on the top really put a target on your back this last weekend when we played.
Yeah.
All I wanted to do was play good chef.
We had some people pulling some shady moves.
That's all right. Got hatred in my heart.
Looking at Randy.
Been building infect decks.
Wait,
become the
So-
problem.
Shady.
So, Derek, do you understand how I felt now that you've had Randy intentionally steal a survival from you?
Well, no, yeah, I was, so Randy, instead of killing Benjamin, he made a deal with Benjamin to come in second place so that way Benjamin could win over Travis and I. In a game that I feel like Travis and I could have had an equal chance of winning and coming back because Benjamin only had like 2 life or whatever. And I was mad, but Randy is my opponent and he's allowed to want me to lose. Or, he's my opponent. He doesn't owe me anything.
Yeah.
Well, and it was the same thing that happened with you, where by saving me,
Exactly.
he came in second instead of
Right.
third.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's tough. Listeners, our emotions do get a little heightened, even only knowing that pride and glory is on the line at the end of the league. Like, when we have started tracking these points and these achievements and things like that, the games do change, and the decisions that we make in-game do change.
Yep.
Based on who's ahead and who's last. So this has definitely been a fun experiment. We're going to keep going for... Did we agree on 25 games?
I don't know. We flip-flopped on like 1,000 different ideas.
We still haven't decided on that, but we're not going to just play straight 32 games or whatever. We are going to cut it off probably in the next couple months.
Did we say 100 points?
That was an idea a while ago, but then we figured that might only be, one more session, so...
That might be the way to go.
Which I would be fine with, because that one more session will probably be in May.
Yeah.
Okay, coming in second place, Benjamin reclaims second place. He has a total of 80 points. He earned a staggering 15 points, and he is chomping at Derek's heels right now. Derek at 86, Benjamin right behind with 80. Benjamin, how's it feel to reclaim second?
Feels good, but if you ain't first, you're last. So, gotta keep chugging.
I am right behind Benjamin. I'm floundering in third place with 77 points. I earned a very sad 7 points last session. So Derek earned 6, I earned 7. And Randy is still in fourth with 72 points, but my God, closing the gap and earning an astonishing 17 points last session.
Yeah. He
over the course of only 3 games.
Came in first in 2 of them and second in the last one. Man.
Randy is only 5 points behind me, only 14 points behind the lead, and as we've seen, that can happen in one game. Or not one game, but one session.
Yeah.
So Randy decided to abandon his poolside tiki bar, and he decided he wants to race.
No, I honestly, didn't think I had that many points until you guys sent it later on, and I was like, I don't know where I got all these points from, but I guess winning twice in third.
Oh yeah.
Well,
the second time or the last one.
Yeah, but there was also at the end of game 2, you sat there and went, let's see, can I make my people really big? Let's see how many shrines I can get.
Yep, it was Goshentai of Life's Origin again.
Yep. Let me see how many enchantments you definitely intentionally spent about 20 minutes maximizing your points.
Yeah, but I think the game before that, someone else did that same thing too, though.
You were the one that won
So
before that.
Yeah.
I won, but I think I thought someone else still did.
No, sir.
Are you talking about in a previous session? Yes, Derek did that the first time we played.
Yeah, with Joda.
And you also
When
did
I
that with
exploded
Goshentai
everything
again.
on the thing. We just decided I won.
Yeah.
Or when I could play everything, we just counted up everything I could do.
Right.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah, and
kinda
Randy-
what I was doing.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with
Randy
it.
won with-
but that's I no longer consider you casual.
He's ready for a higher
So
type
yeah,
of
Randy
war.
won with Goshintai of Life's Origin, and he won with Miriam Sentinel Worm. And he earned Nailbiter. That might be the first time Nailbiter has been earned.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, very fun session. I really did enjoy hanging out with you guys and playing some good games.
Mm-hmm. Let me just say that, what's her name? Galadriel. She is on notice. She better
On thin ice,
pull
on probation.
out the stops the next time I play her, or it's trouble for her.
You have failed me for the last time,
Honestly.
Galadriel. Yeah. Yeah, I was pretty sad about the performance of my Ovika deck too.
Yeah, it did kind of...
But,
Didn't seem that good.
you know,
Yeah.
somebody paid the ward. And that was enough. Okay, today's topic is about building a commander deck for Magic the Gathering. Commander is our format. It's the only style we play. We build Commander. It's a format where we can build our decks ahead of time, and then we bring them together to play. There are a couple disclaimers, a couple things that we want to make sure to mention and put out there. You know, say that this is not a perfect template. This is not the type of decks that will win every single game. Benjamin, can you do our first disclaimer?
Obviously, every deck is unique. Deck construction is always going to be based on the abilities of the commander, what power level you're shooting for, your preferences, your budget. You'll find that the four of us that are doing this podcast, we have different preferences on how we distribute cards in each category we're going to talk about, but we do agree on the categories. What we suggest you do is consider the categories that we talk about and the number of cards that we talk about, and use that as a guide, and then tweak the ratios to best capture what you're looking for in a deck.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and do disclaimer 2. Remember to keep your meta in mind whenever you are building a deck. The four of us build decks knowing that we will play against each other. We have described our meta many times as pro wrestling. Our decks are strong, and they're resilient, and they're capable of making very big plays. But generally, the earliest wins we see in our meta occur on turn 5 or 6 for even our most powerful decks. If you, listener, want to win faster than that, then you should look to CEDH creators and tips. CEDH stands for Competitive EDH. And people building those decks, they try to win on turn 2 or 3, usually by creating some type of winning combo, and sometimes even on turn 1. Now that is not the power level that we shoot for. Our template would not help you reach that level. If you want to build something more powerful than winning on turn 5 or 6 at the most powerful, that's probably what we can do, then you should look to a different deck building template or different deck building tips. Does anybody have anything they want to add to that?
Sure, just that CEDH really builds on a different axis than what you expect for pretty much any style of deck building, whether it's EDH or anything else. They all follow very similar deck building rules, and then CEDH and like high level vintage are a different animal. Like you said, if you're looking for that, you probably need to go elsewhere.
It is going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's true too. And they really are trying to win sometimes on turn 1, 2, or 3. And they're trying to stop everybody else from winning at the same time.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Disclaimer number 3 is that Derek and I actually recorded a deck building episode last week that when you're hearing this will not have come out yet. And it's going to hit on several of the themes that we talk about here and then do deep dives into some of it and ignore others. I highly recommend that you listen to that episode for some more intermediate deck building tips and ideas from Derek and me. But just know when you're listening to that episode that we recorded this episode afterwards. And so we didn't know what we were going to say in this episode when we recorded that episode.
But of course, we recommend you listen to both.
Absolutely.
Okay, the first step, the first part, the number one thing, I think, when building your commander deck is choosing your commander. This is card number 1. A couple things for a beginning player to know. Your commander needs to be a legendary creature on its front side, or another card that somehow explicitly says that it can be your commander, such as a background enchantment or certain planeswalkers. But generally the rule is that it has to be a legendary creature on its front side. What else?
Your commander has what is called a color identity, and that is made up of the symbols in its mana cost, the symbols in any color indicators that it has, and any mana symbols that appear in its text box in its rules text.
Right.
All of those symbols together make up the commander's color identity, and every card that you put in your deck must be within the color identity of your commander. So, for example, if your commander is red, green, and white, you can have red cards, red and green cards, white and red cards, but nothing that has blue or black in its color identity.
Right. And we say mana symbols in the mana cost and its abilities because, for example, we have cards like Goshintai of Life's Origin and Sisei Weatherlight Captain. Goshintai only costs green mana to cast, but then has all 5 mana symbols in its rules text. And the same with Captain Sisei. She has only white in her mana cost, but then all 5 colors in her abilities.
Right.
So those 2 commanders can actually have cards of any color.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you're looking for. There are also cards like Alesha, who smiles at death. Her mana cost is only red, but then has an ability that includes white and black. So a deck for Alesha, who smiles at death, is a 3-color identity. Red, white, and black.
Yeah.
So this first step is just choosing a commander with a cool ability that you want to push to the extreme. Maybe it's a commander that is a cool character, maybe it has cool art, and maybe it just has a cool theme that you want to see pop off. What goes through y'all's heads when you're thinking about picking a commander? What inspires you?
I'll be honest, I really like commanders, well, especially lately, and I can thank Randy for this, commanders that come out early.
Yeah.
And do something cool early on, so you can just do the thing while everybody else is still building.
Why do you say you have Randy to thank for that?
Because he built Rograk and Ardennes for me.
Oh, that's right.
And so, of course, you can always play Rograk on turn 1, no matter what. And Ardennes comes out, 2 turns later, and they're doing the thing early. And so, yeah, it feels really good to be swinging in with your commander, and your commander's abilities are front and center. It feels great. That eventually led me to the monkey. Ragavan. Right? I love my commander comes out on turn 1, and I'm doing the thing while y'all are
playing a tap land or playing ramp or whatever else.
Yep. Of course, we'll talk about that later. There are some really cool commanders that are really expensive, and those are fun too. But I'm kind of on that cheap legend kick right now for my commanders.
So your commander is a creature that you always have access to. It lives in a special zone outside the battlefield called the command zone, and you can recast your commander if it ever gets removed. When you're looking for a commander, you're looking for an ability that you want on the battlefield all the time, because you always have access to it. So yeah, pick a creature that you want to see whose abilities really cry out to you.
I will say this for choosing commanders. Yes, usually I start with the commander's abilities and build around it, but every once in a while I see a really cool theme in Magic. I see all this stuff. I really want to build a deck based around partners with, or I really want to build a deck based around, I don't know, treasure tokens or whatever it is. I will just look around to find a commander whose abilities either make up for a weakness the deck has, or really just helps the theme along, because sometimes there either aren't commanders that are right on theme, or the best commanders that are on theme lack the right colors.
Yep.
And so a great example of that is my Nethroi deck. Nethroi does fit the theme pretty well, but I didn't build it around Nethroi. I built it around other pieces, and Nethroi just kind of fits in with that theme.
Yeah.
For me, I like to have a lot of variety. I mean, I'll pick a commander because I like the character, like Megatron, Omnath. I think those are, I really like those characters. But usually I find a theme that I want to do that I haven't done already, and I'll try to pick the colors I don't have already just to have a different experience every time I play. Like if it's the same deck, why have 2 different decks that are doing a similar or different, like a similar thing or the same thing. I like to jump around and experience a lot of different things. So I try to have a different theme and a different color, or at least a color combination that I don't have already. But there are just some commanders that I'm like, hey, I know I already have this color combination, but I really like this theme, and I think this is the best fit.
But I have to build it
the way I want to play.
Yeah. Something to keep in mind when you're looking through legendary creatures and trying to get inspired is take a look at their mana cost. Take a look at their mana value, because that is going to determine when you can cast that spell. When in your game plan can you get that ability onto your battlefield. Personally, I really don't like commanders that have a mana value greater than 4 these days. How about you guys?
I haven't necessarily been avoiding like any kind of like commander. I mean, that's kind of like what I do is I build towards the commander, depending on the ramp and stuff like that. But a lot of, I think, other than Geshath and technically Henzi, all my other commanders are 4 mana. Oh, and I guess Frodo and Sam, they're all less than 4, other than Geshath. And it's not something I'm trying
Galadriel is 5,
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's not something I'm trying to do. It's just something that's happening. I guess power creep is just like, hey, they're 4 CMC now. But I do like the big boys. I do love Geshath. It's probably one of my favorite decks, just to vomit out tons of dinosaurs. I mean, they're expensive for a reason.
Yeah. Another bit of power creep that we've experienced is that lots of commanders are starting, or lots of legendary creatures, I should say, are starting to have abilities that say, draw a card.
Yes.
Yeah.
Draw a card whenever you do what this legendary creature wants you to do. When you lean into this particular thing, +1/+1 counters, small creatures, whatever, draw a card. That is a very powerful ability, and that makes for a very appealing legendary creature to put at the head of your commander deck. So that's just one card. I usually pick commanders first. That's usually what happens to me. But like Benjamin said before, sometimes I'll be looking through and I'll see a strategy. Or I might just see like 3 cards that I want to play in a deck together. And then I'll start looking for legendary creatures that can have the colors I need, that can fit the thing.
Yeah.
But usually I get inspired by a legendary creature first.
Yeah, I usually go for the commander first. Like, for me, it's a lot of like the flavor of the commander, or if there's something about them that I like that's maybe just like funny. So like one that just came out, I don't have any plans to build it right now, but maybe one day when I'm re-inspired to build again.
Mm-hmm.
Felix 5 Boots.
Oh, the new one?
Have y'all seen this?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's an ooze rogue, and he just has 5 legs, and so he has 5 boots on. It's just a funny idea, and the things I've seen online is someone's like, well, you gotta get Swiftfoot boots, and Lightning Greaves, and Lava Spur
funny.
boots, Trailblazer
Winged
boots,
boots.
Zephyr boots, Winged boots. Yeah, it's just you fill the deck with, like, boots.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
To equip to him. And his ability is Menace and Ward 2, but it says, like, if a creature you control dealing combat damage to a player causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time.
Whoa.
I'm like, oh yeah, combat damage tricks. So I'm thinking like my Boros deck, but in the exact opposite colors. Black, green, blue.
Ooh, that's so good. That would double up all of your Thassa's Bident and Coastal Piracy
Card draw
triggers.
stuff,
all those card draw
yeah.
triggers get
very
doubled.
good.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it looks like it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's exciting.
So yeah, I look for just like kooky things that just like, I guess, that interest me. I don't know how to describe it. Like just a kooky commander, like I said, with Goshentai. It's a building. You're fighting buildings.
Have fun fighting this chair.
Yeah, exactly. The throne
Yeah.
is attacking you for 6 damage. What do you do?
This chair and all his chair buddies are beating the shit out of you.
Yeah, just taking you to Chairtown. Just taking you to Gallery Furniture.
Watch out the chair!
All right, you guys ready for the first actual category?
Yeah, this category is ramp. As most of you listening to this probably know, Magic uses a resource called mana, which determines the cost of spells and whether or not you can play them. You get mana from cards called lands. You play a land, usually the rules say once per turn, and each land usually taps for 1 mana. And so you can, throughout the game, you can progressively play larger and larger spells that cost more and more mana. Well, any kind of card that can get you ahead of that, where you can play cards on turns that you ordinarily wouldn't be able to, we call that ramp. And so this category is called ramp because it lets you play larger spells earlier in the game. It ramps you up to those things.
It lets you spend more mana than your turn number would normally allow you to.
Exactly. And so there are several ways to do this. There are cards that let you play extra lands. There are cards that let you put lands from your library directly into play. There are cards that make mana in other ways besides lands. And your deck wants some number of these cards. Basically, every deck wants these. I think I have one deck that doesn't play any ramp like this. Otherwise, every deck wants some number. I don't know about y'all, but I usually start with the baseline of 10 ramp cards. What do you think?
My starting number for templates is 10. Usually I end up with between 12 and 14, just because I like to keep a couple big cards in my deck, just because that's fun for me.
Yeah.
And I know that in order to play a big card, that I need to ramp more to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the general number is 10, and if I did only have 10, then I would try to cut, 7 cost or 8 cost cards from my deck, because I can't guarantee that I would ever actually get there.
Yeah.
And it's my nightmare to have a card in my hand that I can never play. It's just dead. It's just a waste of a card.
Yeah, it just sits there taunting you.
Exactly. It says, man, wouldn't it be great if you could cast me with, not enough mana, looking back up at me saying, sorry, we couldn't get there.
Yeah. So if you're a newbie listening to this because you were looking for a deck building template, this is the first thing you need to know. And it's one of the first things that I think new players struggle with. Why do I play this boring card that just makes mana or finds a land to put into play? Right? It's not fun. It's not exciting. It doesn't feel like it'll win you the game because it won't beat your opponents down for 10 life or whatever. But to play those flashy cards that look really cool, to play your dragons and your angels, you need the mana to cast them. And like Travis just said, it feels terrible to have it sitting in your hand while your friends are hitting you and you can't do anything. So you must play these to keep up.
Yeah.
So some cards you're going to be looking for. The first category is often referred to as mana rocks. These are artifacts that make mana. Because they're artifacts, they are usually colorless and can go in just about any deck. And the most common of these that probably goes in every deck ever is Soul Ring. It is a relatively cheap 1 mana artifact that makes 2 colorless mana. And so it gets you ahead the turn you play it because it costs 1 mana and makes 2. And then every turn after that, you are 2 turns ahead. One of the best mana rocks ever printed. And it's been printed many, many, many times, which is why it's cheap enough to just make sure you always have one.
Yeah. It will never be lower than $2, I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
Because every deck needs it.
Yeah.
You better have a really, really good reason if you cut Soul Ring from your deck.
Yeah.
I think I've had one deck in my entire life that didn't run a Soul Ring, and that was Child of Alara.
Yeah.
Because Child of Alara is going to die and destroy my Soul Ring, and I won't get to use it. So,
yeah.
But that was it. You better have a really good reason for not using it.
Yeah.
I think Soul Ring is probably absolutely up there. Maybe it's in the top 3 because it costs 1. There are some that cost 0. Mana Crypt and Mana Vault. Mox Amber. And the dollar price is going to go way up on those.
Yeah.
Because they're amazing. Because they're going to ramp you for free. You don't have to pay any mana. And then you start looking for your 2 mana rocks. Some ones that I just want to call out are Mind Stone, because later in the game you can chuck it for a card.
Yep.
And then the Signets. So you have Arcane Signet, which can tap for any color in your commander's color identity. And then there's all of the Ravnica Guild Signets, which filter 1 mana into 2 mana. Those are just really good. They're staple cards. Add the talismans in there.
Yes.
If you go to Scryfall and search Talisman, you'll find them. They cost 2. They tap for 1 colorless. Or they tap for 1 of 2 colors and deal 1 damage to you.
Yeah.
Those are fine.
Yeah.
Those are really, really great because in Commander you have 40 life to spend. So your life is a resource at all parts of the game.
Definitely.
I think the medallions, is that the one where it makes spells of that color cheaper by 1?
Yes.
Are they
medallions.
Yes.
2? Are they 2 cost or are they 3 cost?
They cost 2 as well.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
I like them if you're trying to chain, if you got a lot in that one color. I mean, don't put it in like a 3, 4, or 5 color deck, but 1 or 2, you could start chaining it. It really saves a lot of mana over time.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
I would want a lot of spells in a single color because they don't make mana. So if you, let's say you play Ruby Medallion, which reduces red cost spells, and then you're trying to play, on turn 3, you're trying to play Worn Power Stone. Well, you better hope you hit your 3rd land because your Ruby Medallion didn't get you there.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, there are some other cool cards for casting artifacts. Joyra's Familiar, Foundry Inspector, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
Is that right,
Yes.
Benjamin?
Artifacts.
Yeah.
Those reduce the costs of historic spells or artifact spells. If you have a lot of artifacts in your deck, whether it is just your mana rocks or whether it's equipment or whatever else, those can save you a lot of mana too.
Yeah.
Another way to generate mana is some creatures. Some creatures can generate mana, and we often call these mana dorks. The most popular one probably being Llanowar Elves.
Yeah, or Birds of Paradise.
Yeah, Birds of Paradise, Arbor Mage?
Well, Arbor Elf?
Arbor Elf and Elvish Mystic is what I'm thinking. Avacyn's Pilgrim.
Yeah.
These are all cards that you can play for 1 mana, and then they themselves tap for mana. They have Summoning Sickness when they come in, but then the next turn, they can tap for mana. So they have ramped you. You are up on your curve now because you played something beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another way to do it is enchantment ramp. Green especially does a lot of enchantment ramp. These are cards that are auras. So you can equip a forest or you can equip a land you have, and now that land taps for more than it did before. So these are cards like Wild Growth, Overgrowth. Obviously there's a bunch, but I can't seem to remember any of them.
Utopia Sprawl. I really
Uh-huh.
like that one. You said Wild Growth, right?
Yeah.
Pulling up my Elevator deck to check.
Yeah.
Fertile Ground.
Yeah, Fertile Ground.
Fertile Ground. Yeah, that's right. That's a good one. Another thing to think about with your enchantment ramp is there's lots of them that cost 3, but they'll have some other effect. Gain 3 life, or put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. And these are great for whatever synergy or whatever theme you're trying to make the rest of your deck around.
Yeah.
If the rest of your deck is about +1/+1 counters, play the enchantment that enchants a land, ramps you, and puts a +1/+1 counter on. That way you're doing what your theme wants and ramping at the same time.
Yeah.
The same can be said about mana rocks too. There are lots of 3 mana rocks that tap for 1 and also do something cool.
Yeah.
Put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, or creatures you control of a certain color get +1/+0. So you kind of have your own little anthem effect on a mana rock at the same time.
I normally stick to 2 mana ramp, but they are starting to make some really cool mana rocks at 3 mana that do interesting things. Is it Midnight Clock?
Yes.
Taps for blue, and then
Midnight Clock is 2 and a blue. It taps for blue, and then after 12 turns, I think you sacrifice it and draw 7 cards.
yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And not 12 of your turns, 12 of everyone's turns.
Yeah.
So it's basically,
3
if
turns.
you have 4 players in your pod, in 3 turns, you get to refill your hand with 7 cards.
Yeah, really cool way to play your blue mana ramp and then keep going. I would say anything over 2 needs to be really on theme for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's kind of setting you back, because when you're trying to get ahead, you want to get ahead early. So there are some high mana ramp spells that I used to play a lot of that I don't play as much now just because they cost too much. Gilded Lotus is a great example of this.
I used to play that all the time.
Yeah, and it's great
Yeah.
if you're trying to get to 8 mana consistently. Okay, I would still play it, but not at the expense of the 2 mana. Yeah, the 2 mana is boring. You play your Arcane Signet on turn 2, and it helps you go from 2 mana to 4 mana on turn 3, and you're like, I still can't play my 8-drop. But without that 2 mana ramp, you're not playing your Gilded Lotus on time. Those of you who don't know, Gilded Lotus is a 5 mana rock that taps for 3 mana of any color. It's excellent. It can fix your colors. It takes you from 5 to 8 or 9 mana when you finally get it, but you got to get to 5 first. I would never cut the cheap ramp to play the expensive ramp, and I would only play the expensive ramp if I'm going really, really big.
Yeah, have a reason to do it. Don't just throw it in a deck just because it's ramp.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
I think we should definitely mention the most important ramp especially if you are playing green as one of your colors, and that is land-based ramp. It is safe.
Absolutely. It is absolutely the best, yeah.
Yeah, and it's the best because if someone plays Farewell or Merciless Eviction or Vandal Blast or whatever, those are
Austere Command.
Austere Command, yep. There's so many things that can get rid of your enchantment ramp, your mana rocks, your mana dorks, and you're set back all the way to how much land you had before. But there's very little mass land destruction played in casual Commander that if you play a card like Rampant Growth, which is a 2-mana sorcery that grabs a basic land from your deck and puts it on the battlefield, that land will always be there. And you will have ramped permanently. It gets you the next color you need to keep going. And it's just very, very efficient and effective. So playing cards like Rampant Growth, there are a couple of 3-mana ones, Cultivate and Kodama's Reach, that get a land on the battlefield and one in your hand. Generally be okay with that.
I think Farseek is 2 mana.
Farseek is 2 mana.
Nature's
Lore.
Yeah.
3 visits.
3 visits. I was thinking about that one.
Yeah.
Nature's Lore and 3 visits are really great because they say search for a forest and it comes onto the battlefield untapped.
Yeah.
Yes.
In that same vein,
Yeah.
Skyshroud Claim costs 4 mana. You go get 2 forest. They come into battlefield untapped, so could be having it could be like a 2-mana spell kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like an immediate refund.
Yeah.
Almost.
A tax rebate.
It's not, but it is almost like an immediate refund. A tax rebate.
Right.
Yeah, another thing that's great about land-based ramp is that while not statistically significant, it does thin your deck. You are not going to draw that land later.
Yeah.
When you're digging through your deck, playing your card draw spells or activating your card draw effects because you're trying to get an answer or you're trying to get a winning card, and then you draw a land instead, that feels bad. But if you are playing cards that search these lands out of your deck and put them on your battlefield, you are literally seeing more cards from your deck, and you are increasing your chances to draw the winning cards.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to draw that land anymore later.
Yep. And the ones that search for a land type rather than a basic land, a lot of newer people don't realize this, but if it says search for a forest, you can search for any card that has forest as a type, including things like Temple Garden or the new, the Triomes. I forget I don't remember the specific names for those.
I don't think anybody knows
There's
the
Rogren,
Ikoria
which
Triome
is
names.
the Jeskai one. Oh my god. I know 2 of these.
Kestia?
Kestia's the Teamer one. Oh no. What's the Sultai one?
I know, dude. Nobody knows.
I don't know. The Sultai one I have is in some other language, so I don't even know what it is. I just go look for it. There's some artifact lands with basic land types. And there's all sorts of ones that come into tapped unless certain things happen, but you can go get those. And so searching for a forest could be searching for a forest plane. That can help you fix.
Exactly.
So those are really good. There are a few cards that I want to give honorable mention here to that search for any land and not just a basic land or a card of a specific type.
Yeah.
And if you rely on specific lands, such as a Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, which adds mana equal to your devotion to a specific color.
An Urborg.
Yep, Urborg and Yawgmoth.
Or Cabal Coffers.
Yep, those sorts of things. Then, oh dang, I forgot the...
Pier's Whim.
Yes.
Is one, right?
Yes.
Tempt with Discovery.
Yes. And what is the one? Oh, so these aren't necessarily ramp, but like crop rotation and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What?
Harrow?
Harrow.
Harrow is ramp, but I think it gets you basic land types. I'm trying to think of the ones that search for any land.
If you're in white and you think that white struggles to ramp, white has several cards that search specifically for planes.
Yes.
White rewards you for being very white. So a lot of its cards will say search for a plains. And there are some black cards that say search for a swamp also.
Yes, I have a whole deck built around that.
Oh, Benjamin, Expedition Map?
Yes. Okay, that
is a common artifact that lets you search for a land.
I was looking for that one and one other one. It's a green 2-mana sorcery that searches for any land. I don't know why I can't find it.
Into the North searches for a snow land.
Right, and there's quite a few of those now, so those are good.
The one I sent you earlier today, I liked the Tower Winder.
Yeah, that one looks like
Tower Winder lets you search for Command Tower.
And I like that it's like you search your library and or your graveyard. So I kind of enjoyed that. Like unless someone exiled it, you won't whiff.
Or if you've already drawn it.
Well, yeah. If you've already played it, then at that point you're just probably playing Tower Winder because you're out of options.
Right. It still has Death Touch.
Yeah, it's still got Death Touch.
Reach, yeah, it still has Reach and Death Touch. It's still a great blocker.
There is Scape Shift.
Scape Shift is good, but it costs 4. It just gets you whatever lands you want into play.
Oh, here it is. Sylvan Scrying.
Yes, that's the one. Sylvan Scrying.
Yeah. Search your library for a land, put it in your hand, and shuffle for 2 mana.
Yeah, an expedition map. They do help you make sure that you are hitting your lands on curve, and you can go find lands that ramp you. So there are many lands that can take you a step further, right? If you have kind of a higher budget, you can do lands like Ancient Tomb, which tap for 2, or you can always look for Nykthos or Urborg and Cabal Coffers or things like that. And so because there are lands that can ramp you, I would consider those cards that search for any land to be forms of ramp as well.
Yeah. Like we said, the general number that we closely agree on is 10 as a minimum for ramp.
Yes.
10 cards whose primary purpose. Now again, if they do a synergistic thing with the rest of your deck, that's great. But you need to have 10 sources of ramp in your deck. And like I said, if my curve is higher, then usually I'll add 2 or 3 pieces. Or if my commander does something that needs lands, I'll add a couple more pieces. Stuff like that.
I do way more than that. Just as like it's not any kind of like whatever, but I'm usually around like 15 things a ramp like all the time.
Yeah.
That's just the
I will say that my really good decks in the past have had like 15 to 18 pieces of ramp. Derek, my old Jaleva deck had 18 ramp cards in it.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that depends on the power level you're trying to reach. Because the more you ramp, fill your deck with bombs.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fill your deck with 6, 7, 8 mana bombs and rock and roll.
I was telling Benjamin when we did our other episode, for my Joda Archmage Eternal, how many sources of ramp do you think I have in that deck?
Well, you're trying to hit Omniscience. You have an 8 mana Maelstrom Wanderer as one of your main pieces. I'm going to say 18.
22.
22, my god.
I have 36
Yeah, your
lands.
Maelstrom Wanderer deck was mostly ramp.
Yeah, and then I do have a category that's called like cheat cost, and I have 16 of those. And that's things that like
Wow.
Genesis Ultimatum, which lets you just put permanents onto the battlefield. Itali, put it on the battlefield. Aid from the Cow, put it on the battlefield. You know, all those kind of things. So 22 plus that 16 plus the 36 lands.
Oh my god. Insane, dude. That's awesome. Okay, are we good with ramp for now?
I think I'm solid. I think there's a benefit and a drawback to each one of them.
Well, let's go on to probably your second most winning category. Like we talked about ramp already. This second category is the other category that you must have if you want to win the game, and that's card draw or card advantage. You need to see more cards from your deck than your opponents do. If you see the most cards, you can play the best cards. Okay, you've got to have card draw or card advantage in your decks. Commander decks have 99 cards. You know, card number 1 is your commander, and then the other 99. And you can only have one of each card except for basic lands. And we've already said that at least 10 of those need to be ramp spells so that you can play your winning cards. Well, now you have to increase your chance of seeing those winning cards.
Yep.
So you need to draw the cards from your deck, or you need to, what the Magic community calls tutor cards, which means searching your deck for specific cards. Or I'll say, in my opinion, blue, green, and black are very, very good at drawing cards.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, that is just a fun... And they all have kind of different ways to do it. You know, blue will use spells. Black will have you pay cost or sacrifice creatures. Green will have you check how big your creatures are. Green wants to make sure that you're doing what green wants before it rewards you with cards. But in general, those colors are very good at drawing cards and helping you see more of your deck.
Red's gotten a lot recently. Their thing is all about exiling 1 or 2 cards off the top, and you can play it that turn or until your next turn or something like that.
Yeah, red has what we call impulsive draw. Yeah, it's passionate draw. You know, red is all about passion and impulse and losing your inhibitions. So red has a mechanic that enables you to kind of temporarily have access to more cards. It'll say exile the top card from your deck or the top 2 cards or whatever. Like Derek said, you can cast it until the end of this turn or until the end of your next turn. So you have 1 turn to cast it, and if you don't, then you lose it forever. And that has really helped Red make a lot of progress in the card draw front.
Yeah, but it's still... I never trust that kind of card draw. Even though
I agree.
Even though it's good and I see it in action all the time, it's not satisfying to me. I like to hold them in my hands. I like to be able to save them for just the right moment, and
yeah.
And I hate losing the cards. I hate the use it or lose it feel of that.
Yeah.
So
that's Red.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a red mage. There you go.
Yeah.
Blue, green, and black. Those are my colors. So,
yeah, exactly.
There we go. There are other ways to do this. You mentioned card draw. In highly competitive decks, instead of drawing cards, they'll use cards that we generally call tutor cards. Those are cards that let you search your library for specific cards and put them in your hand. And those will get you exactly the cards you need. They're generally more expensive, both cost, monetary cost and mana cost wise.
Yeah.
And they usually don't give you extra cards. Usually you are using this one card to find one card. But it will always be the card you need for the moment, and it is one way to make sure you get to your winning cards. We typically don't play that many tutors in our meta, and the reason for that is that and you'll see lots of comments about this online. Tutors tend to streamline games, make them very linear, right? You're almost always searching for the same small group of cards, and it will end up where, if you added a fun one-off card that you want to see sometimes, you won't see it because you won't tutor for it. Whereas if you're just relying on what comes off the top of your library through card draw, sometimes you will draw that card. This is especially one of those things that separates competitive Commander from casual Commander, is whether or not you're playing those cheap, 1 or 2 mana tutors to go find the same cards that you need every game to be able to go off on turn 2 or 3.
Yeah,
we tend to not play. And
they do exist. 1 or 2 mana. What are they?
Vampiric
tutor, demonic tutor,
mystic tutor, or mystical tutor,
worldly tutor.
Yep. Yeah, these are all cards that cost 1 or 2. They either search for a specific type, or in the case of demonic tutor, any card that puts them in your hand or on top of your library where you can immediately draw it. And so you can definitely streamline your deck to always see the same cards every game and win as soon as you get them. That is a different style of deck. Obviously, if you're doing that, you're not playing a whole lot of ramp because everything costs 1 or 2 and you're going off on turns 2 or 3. But in our meta, where we're not playing that type of tutor, you generally want to rely on card advantage, seeing multiple cards per turn instead of just the one you draw at the beginning of each turn. And I think you will have a lot more fun playing that way instead of with tutors, and so will the people you play with. And if you're going to play in a more casual meta, card draw or other forms of card advantage are, in my opinion, the key to winning the game.
I agree.
So
I absolutely agree. It's going to increase the variety of your games. Like you can play the same deck, 3 times, but if you aren't relying on tutors and you're doing the card draw route instead, you can win or play with different cards every time.
Yeah.
You've got your commander that stays the same, so your theme is the same, but maybe different elves hit the field first, or a different vampire hits the field, and it starts making the game go in a different direction.
Yeah.
It increases the variety a little bit. Once again, for this category, the general number, the minimum that we agree on, is 10.
Yeah.
You should have 10 cards in your deck that enable you to see and cast more cards than drawing 1 per turn would normally allow. I know that our patron David is a Yu-Gi-Oh player, and this is a category that Yu-Gi-Oh players understand very well. Pot of Greed is a banned card for a reason, and all it says, y'all, is draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
Card draw, card advantage. Seeing more cards is going to help you win the game.
Yeah. And unlike the ramp category, where I could think of excuses for not having 10 ramp cards, if my curve is all 3 or below or something like that, but I have never built a deck that I liked that had fewer than 10 card advantage spells. Never, ever.
Yeah.
I would argue that you almost can't have enough card draw.
Yeah, I agree.
I think card draw even more than ramp, is the most important thing you can put in your deck. Because if you can't draw cards, you're not going to win. Every deck that wins has card draw.
Yeah, I agree with you. Listen, I can have less ramp if I have more draw, because if I have more draw, I'm more likely to hit the fewer ramp spells I have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more likely to hit the ramp, and I'm more likely to hit my land drop every single turn. You can't have enough card draw in your deck.
I'll even go a step further and say the more ramp you have, the more card draw you need. Because there's kind of this opposite thing where we were talking about not having enough mana to play your spells earlier, but there's a terrible feeling of having 20 mana and nothing to spend it on.
Yes.
Oh, God.
And if I'm playing 20 ramp spells, I'm probably also playing 20 card draw spells because, okay, you ramped into your 8-drop, you played your 8-drop, and now you better hope it gets you there because your hand's empty. And a well-timed Swords to Plowshares, and you're stuck with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're speaking to past me and my Avacyn deck.
Yeah.
You ramp to 8, get Avacyn on the board, and then you have an empty hand and no board wipes to play.
Yeah. My Ashaya deck, where literally every card in it is a land, is probably, I think, plays 20 cards that draw cards because I want to keep my hand full to keep putting stuff on the field.
So I like a mix of what I call, just in my own head, I call it burst draw and steady draw. I like to have some cards that give me 2 or 3 cards all at one time. In black, you might see spells like Sign in Blood and Night's Whisper. These are amazing black cards. They provide burst draw for very little mana. They both cost 2 mana, and they say draw 2 cards, lose 2 life.
Yeah.
I really like spells like that, but I also like some steady draw. And usually these are enchantments or artifacts or maybe a creature, and they say, when you do X, draw a card. Or they might just say, like, at the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card.
Right.
Or gain a life and draw a card, like Phyrexian Arena.
Right. Lose life, draw a card.
Yeah. Lose life, draw a card, or even something like, what is it, Greed or Underground Connections?
Yeah, pay 2 mana, draw a card.
Pay 2 mana, draw a card. You know, as long as I have a source of being able to see, even if it is only 1 extra card a turn, I like to have a few of those.
Yeah.
So a mix of burst and steady draw. Beast Whisperer is a green card that is great steady draw because it provides a card each time you cast a creature spell.
Yep.
This can be built around, and you can ensure that it happens often. That way you draw lots of cards. Go back and listen to Randy's Go Shintai of Life's Origin deck. This is an enchantment deck. He has several, what the Magic community calls, enchantresses. This is a very common effect that says, when you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. It's steady draw, but it can be built around to really take advantage of.
I do like steady draw, I think, more than burst draw. Not because I think it's better. I think burst draw is actually probably better in most cases. But I like the steady draw because I tend to like to build grindy decks. And I love to draw cards when I have the mana to use them. So, like, if I use a Siphon Mind, that's one of my favorite burst draw spells.
Oh, I love Siphon Mind. Yes. So good.
Yeah. Which,
great at card advantage.
Yes. I'm going to draw 3 cards. Each of my opponents is going to discard a card. But I just spent 4 mana to draw 3 cards, which is a very good rate. But now, my turn is over. So those 3 cards sit in my hand until next turn, and then I can use them. Whereas, if I play a Phyrexian Arena, when I draw that card, my mana will be open, because I don't draw that card. And every time I draw the next card, I have the mana to play it. And so I never get stuck in a position where somebody wheels, makes me discard my hand and draw new cards, or where someone plays their own Siphon Mine and I'm discarding one of the cards I just drew, because I always have the mana when I play the card. And in the worst case scenario where they destroy the Phyrexian Arena before I draw a card, then it was basically a discard spell. I played a card to get rid of one of their cards.
Yeah.
So I don't hate it in that situation. So generally, I tend to, just my style of play, I generally like the grindy, steady draw over time. But I will say that that's a personal preference and not a strategy thing. I think burst draw making sure that when you spend the mana, you do get the cards is probably better most of the time.
Yeah, I'm in that camp where I think that I use Steady Draw a lot. I use Beast Whisperer. I use Garruk's Uprising. Use those in almost every single deck I build.
Yes, Garruk's Uprising is another
I
great
build
one.
Burst, or I like Burst.
Rishkar's Expertise,
Yes.
an incredible burst
I
draw
just
spell.
don't know if I'll be alive a lot of times. If I'll be alive next turn, and this 1 or 2 or however many cards, 6 cards, whatever, could be the difference between getting a removal spell to save myself from losing commander damage or something, or getting rid of whatever. So I'm a big fan of Burst. I don't think you can go wrong by having a little bit of both, though.
Yeah. Randy, do you want to add anything in here?
I don't know if I had anything to really add. I mean, I kind of agree with what Derek said there at the end that, burst is nice to have, but I think maybe I'm more on Benjamin's side of just like being able to consistently get like an extra card or two, like every turn. It's nice to know that it's like, okay, I don't have to worry about top decking one card because maybe I have 3 chances to top deck the card I need.
Mm-hmm. This may not be popular, but I do like the mana rocks that can be sacked for cards. Commander Sphere, I know it costs 3, but it can be sacked for a card later. Mind Stone, Hedron Archive. I usually don't go all the way up to Dreamstone Hedron. Costs 6, and then you have to pay 3 to draw 3 cards. But I do still put Hedron Archive in several decks. It costs 4, it taps for 2, and then you can pay 2 to draw 2 cards. I like those because if I get into the late game and, like Derek said, I'm desperately looking for removal, or I'm desperately looking for one final answer, I can start throwing out the baby with the bathwater and start trying to just dig for cards.
Yeah.
I think there are some Ravnica ones. What are those called? Clue stones?
Yeah, it takes a lot for me to want to put a clue stone in my deck, I'll be honest.
Desperate.
I think those are pay 2 mana, draw 1
There's
card.
other ones that were pay 4 mana to draw 2 cards.
Those are the lockets.
Yes. I'm kind of okay with the lockets.
Really?
I mean, I haven't put one in a deck in a long
Oh,
time.
okay. Maybe
But
if we were playing Pauper EDH.
Yeah, I think if I had a way to consistently get out Fangren Marauder, I might play a bunch of those.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But probably not.
Anyway, just wanted to throw that out, especially for new players. If your decks are just going to be full of commons right now, or cards that come in precons, like unfortunately those are the cards that come in precons. Hedron Archive, Mind Stone, Commander Sphere, and I'm just saying I don't see anything wrong with those.
Hedron Archive I'm fine with. It only costs 2 mana to draw 2 cards,
right.
And in the meantime it ramps you from 4 to 6.
Yeah.
It's not my first choice for ramp because I want to play my ramp early like we talked about, but if you're going big, I will happily play a Hedron Archive, and I agree with you with the Commander Sphere and the Mind Stone especially. The ability to cash in for a card when you no longer need the ramp is great because it's so common that you draw your ramp spell on turn 10 when you've got 11 mana available to you, and you're like, I don't need an Arcane Signet, but a Mind Stone is 3 mana to draw another card.
Yeah.
And so is a Commander Sphere. And so the fact that you get to keep going when you top deck a dead card is so much better than other forms of ramp. So yeah. And I want to add another form of steady draw that I think y'all don't really do, but I've built several decks this way. And that is filling your deck with cantrips. And it's really weak card advantage, but it is card advantage. You played a card that does its own thing, plus draws you your next card. So it replaces itself, plus gets some advantage. And I think I have 3 decks where the source of card draw in that deck is just 30 cantrips. Or a bunch of cards that just replace themselves and move on to the next card. And the goal of those is if my first 10 cards, if 5 of them are cantrips, that means by turn 10 I've seen 15 cards. That's the same as one of those being a draw 5, right?
Yeah.
And if that fits in the theme of my deck, I will often do that instead of having dedicated card draw. But I will generally only do that if it really fits the theme or if my commander provides some sort of card draw as well.
I did that when I built my Chun-Li deck.
Yeah.
Full of cantrips.
Great example. Feather very commonly does that.
I don't have any currently built decks, but Feather was one that was like that. The gift deck I made you, the green blue one.
Jolrael and
Talrand. I never can remember his name for some reason.
Yeah. I also just built Lord of the Nazgul. Benjamin, you didn't see that deck yet, but it has lots of cantrips in it too.
Yeah. You can go watch the John Arenicus deck tech. That one is one that does that. I think I have somewhere between 15 and 20 cantrips, and my Orvar deck does that. where
Oh, yeah.
just target something, draw a card. Target something, draw a card. So that's actually double the card advantage because I'm also getting a copy of whatever I target. But it doesn't make sense for me to play even a great rate like 3 mana, draw 3. I would rather just play a 1 mana, draw 1 because I also it's part of the theme. It also triggers Orvar.
I was thinking when you were talking about cantrips, another thing that sometimes goes through my head when I'm thinking about card draw or card advantage is what I call virtual card draw. And graveyard recursion is virtual card draw. So
yeah, definitely.
So let me think about Ravos Soul Tender.
Yeah.
Or another card like Oversold Cemetery. These cards say once per turn, or it's on your upkeep, right?
Yes.
On your upkeep, return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Well, it's not card draw, but it's another card in my hand. It's just the same card I've already played before.
Yeah.
So if I can play the same card over and over and over and over again at a rate that is similar to drawing more cards, I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely.
Black has several of these, of just like, hey, on your upkeep, do this. Black-green Golgari has several cards that do this.
Mm-hmm.
I have my Kaga Shadow Archdruid deck, which has you mill cards every turn, and then each turn you can play 1 card from your graveyard. Well, that's draw. It's virtual draw. I'm seeing more cards in my deck, and I have access to more than just the cards that I had in my hand, plus my 1 card draw for the turn.
Yeah, you can even do burst card draw this way with things like Morbid Plunder. It says return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. Well, it's a 3 mana draw 2. One of my favorite ones is Grim Discovery. Grim Discovery is 2 mana, says choose one or both, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, or return target land card from your graveyard to your hand. If you're playing fetch lands, if you're playing anything like Harrow that sacks a land to go get more lands, anything like that, then Grim Discovery is always draw a creature, draw a land, which is fun. There's several cards like that are very cheap, 2 mana or 3 mana, that say, return 1 creature or return 2 creatures of the same type, or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are good forms of burst card draw. Green has several of those that can return any card to your hand.
Yep. What is that, Regrowth?
Regrowth is the basic one,
yeah.
But as you go up, you'll hit ones that are like return any number with different mana values. Mm-hmm. Or return any number with converted mana cost 6 or less. Yep. Total converted mana cost 6 or less. So that might be like a 6 mana draw 4 or things like that, is assuming you have a way to put things in your graveyard consistently.
So
I'm definitely in agreement with you. And in fact, I kind of took to that really early. That's why so many of my early decks were graveyard decks.
All right, let's get to the third category. We usually put 10 cards in this category too, depending on the other ratios. All of these categories are little knobs that you should tweak depending on how you feel your deck needs to be. But this category is removal and interaction. You have a game plan that you want to see through, that you want to push through to the end. Your opponents do too. And you need to be able to stop them. You need to be able to get in their way beyond just bashing your creatures into their creatures. You need to be able to get their stuff out of the way so that you can go in and finish the job. So removal and interaction, like I said, generally you want 10-ish cards in this category as well.
Yeah, there's way too many to mention here. So I think just giving some general categories, you're typically looking at spot removal. That's a card that can take out 1 or 2 specific permanents. So something like we mentioned Swords to Plowshares already, that just exiles a creature. There are cards that are more versatile, like Despark or Vindicate. Those exile or remove a permanent. So there's spot removal that takes out 1 or 2 pesky things.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are board wipes. Those are things that take out a whole category of things. Maybe deals damage to every creature, or returns non-land permanents to their owner's hands, or things like that. They just kind of reset the board in some way. And generally those are for when you're very behind in the game.
Most often, the color of the color pie that has the claim to fame on board wipes is white.
Yes.
So white will sometimes partner with other colors in order to create more varied or more specific board wipes. But this is another way that white creates card advantage, is trying to get lots of other people's cards with only 1 of your cards. I can play Wrath of God, which says destroy all creatures, that's 1 card from my hand. But if it takes out 8 cards from across the battlefield, from across my opponent's stuff, then the card advantage it generated was worth it, because I knocked out 7 of their cards. Now, the problem with some board wipes is that they'll hit your own stuff.
Right. So generally you try to play less of your stuff early,
Right.
and then you wipe the board and then start playing your stuff while everybody else is out of cards.
Yeah.
And
We'll sometimes say they're out of gas. They played all their stuff, and now their hands are just, lands, or it's clearly not their best stuff because they might have played it already.
Right. Exactly. And then the other category of interaction, there's spot removal, there's board wipes. The other one is more broad. It's going to be counter spells and reactionary spells. So maybe things like protection, Teferi's protection, or fog, counter spells. These are things that stop your opponents from even affecting the board in the first place. Now, counter spells are the most versatile of these because it can stop them and protect you at the same time. Counterspells are really good. The only problem with them is you have to leave your mana open, which means you're not advancing your board while you play counterspells. And if no one plays something worth countering, you've wasted that mana. Whereas with something like Swords to Plowshares, you know exactly when you need to play it. You can use the mana when you need it and then play the removal spell when you need it. You don't have to hold mana open. But that drawback is mitigated by the fact that they're so powerful because they can protect you, they can stop someone from winning. They basically do all the other things.
Yeah, they can stop someone's really big spell. Someone's, 12 mana Eldrazi spell, or someone's 9 mana sorcery that deals 15 damage to every player, whatever.
Someone's
counterspell.
expropriate.
Yes, expropriate, exactly.
Vindicate or Wrath of God, those are not going to deal with an expropriate, but a counterspell will. So there are certain things that only a counterspell deals with. So I'm willing to play those and take the hit on mana efficiency for the versatility.
Yeah. Counterspells can sometimes be hard for beginner players because they get that itchy trigger finger. They want to blow it because they don't want to waste the mana or whatever. They don't want the mana to sit there unused for a turn, so they'll just blow their counterspell on whatever they have. My rule of thumb for using counterspells has been, if that spell is about to make me lose the game, then I'll counter it. Otherwise, I'll let it resolve.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
Anyway.
Generally, did you say this? We generally want 10 pieces of removal or interaction, but unlike the other categories, I will often go lower in this category, depending on my game plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I am willing to have decks with as few as 5 pieces of interaction. I don't want 0 because then you're at the mercy of other people's powerful plays. Yeah. I do want to have something that can help me break a board stall or protect if my game plan is to play a bunch of small creatures and I'm not coming back from a board wipe, I need to be able to protect myself from that. But if I can just hold the 1 in my hand, I don't need to be drawing 3 of those. 1 heroic intervention or 1 Boros charm is likely to be what I need, because if y'all wipe the board and I can heroic intervention, then I'm the only one left with creatures. It should be quick to close out the game after that. So I just needed 1. And so I will go down on removal, and I actually have a few decks
and go up on card draw
wipes.
So that you can try to hit
and
it.
Go Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this one will have the most variety, I think, depending on your theme and the style of deck. Are you aggressive? Are you controlling? Are you more mid-range? Are you combo? Because those are all going to have varying levels of interaction. But unlike 60-card formats like Standard or Modern, where there are decks that don't play any forms of removal, you are definitely going to want some in some amount, because there are some things that you cannot survive if they play it, and you want to have something to deal with.
Yeah. There was a time in the Magic community where the major school of thought was 5 board wipes, but people were wiping the board so often because everyone at the table had a board wipe in hand that games were lasting a very long time. I think most of the big podcasts now are saying 1. 1
really down to 1.
1 or 2 board wipes in your deck.
I think
because it's a social game and the game has to end. So, if you didn't draw yours, you just take your licks and lose that particular game, and then you shuffle up and move on to the next one.
Right. While I agree that games have to end, I want you to win, dear listeners.
Yeah.
And so, if I'm playing a deck that wants board wipes, that, I'm not putting a board wipe in my token deck.
Yeah,
I don't.
precisely.
But if I'm playing a deck that wants board wipes, I'm going to play at least 3. And I did move away. I used to follow the template of 5 board wipes and 5 spot removals. I have moved more towards 3 board wipes and 7 spot removals as a general rule of thumb. And I think there are some podcasts like the Command Zone where they'll go even higher, maybe 10 spot removals for their 2 board wipes. Of course, it's just going to depend on what you're doing. But
and on who your friends are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If I'm playing a very low number of spot removals, I want them to be as versatile as possible. I want Chaos Warp, I want Beast Within, Vindicate, Counterspell, things that can hit a variety of threats that, just really maximize what I'm getting out of that deck space. Swords to Plowshares, yes, it only hits creatures, but it hits every creature, gets rid of them for good, has very little drawback.
And it only costs 1.
Yeah, only
one
costs
single
1.
white mana.
So if I'm playing white, I will do that one and Path to Exile, and then whatever my secondary color is, I'll play a few general removal spells. But the more versatile, the better when you have so little deck space devoted to it.
Yeah.
I think my personal mindset on board wipes and stuff like that right now is 1 to 3 board wipes, and then about the same on protection from board wipes. So Teferi's protection,
Boros Charm.
Boros Charm, just things that will kind of like, my stuff is invincible, my life can't change. What's the other one with it's a green card, blanking.
Heroic Intervention.
Heroic Intervention, yeah, it's got a Johnny on it.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
so things like that. So it's like, at least if I don't have the counterspell up, at least I can protect my own stuff, and then everyone else can still get wiped.
Yeah,
but I'm there to now either 1v1 with the other person, or if they wiped out their own stuff too, thinking that everyone was going to get reset. It's like, not me. I'll be killing you next turn. Yeah.
One card that I think is underplayed in this category is Golgari Charm, because it can both protect all your stuff by regenerating all your creatures, or it can give all creatures -1/-1. It can take out token armies and mana dorks and all that. I think it goes both as removal and protection. That's one I think any deck with green and black that plays big creatures should be running that, I think.
What is Golgari Charm's last thing?
Destroys an enchantment.
Well, that's good too.
Yeah, it's a great card. And actually, since we're mentioning Golgari, it has some of the most versatile removal out there. Maelstrom Pulse.
I made a whole deck that was just Golgari control.
Yeah. Assassin's Trophy is so versatile.
Another charm that I think is really good. So all of the charms are pretty good. I think Naya Charm is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Deals 3 damage to target creature, or return target card from a graveyard to its owner's hand. Just like we were talking about earlier, virtual card draw. You get a card that you need from your graveyard to hand. Or Alpha Strike time, tap all creatures target player controls.
Yeah,
Boom.
It's a great piece of interaction. Does what you need when you need it.
And we don't need to talk about all the charms, but anyway, that's a good one.
Yes.
Okay, Derek, anything you want to add about removal and interaction?
Yeah.
What's your school of thought here?
My personal thought is that I usually don't ever run more than 2 board wipes. I don't want to be in a game for a lifetime, and they just slow everything down. So I usually only have 1 or 2, unless it's part of the game plan, like with Linda, who dines the plan. So I have 4 board wipes, and a lot of that is wipe everything except for 1 creature, or destroy all creatures except for commanders, that kind of stuff. So it all kind of works the thing. I also, if I can get away with it, board wipes that are asymmetrical. Like in my Frodo Sam deck, there's the Battle of Bywater, which destroys all creatures with power 3 or greater. Guess what? The whole deck is 2 or less. Usually.
Oh man. Yeah, that's awesome.
And because it's a life game deck, I also have a board wipe called Killing Wave, which black and X, for each creature, its controller sacrifices it unless he or she pays X life, which isn't, a guaranteed board wipe, but hey, if I'm paying 5, you're gonna pay 5 life for 1 creature?
Derek, do you have Citywide Bust in your Hobbit deck?
No, I think I own the card somewhere though.
1 white. It only costs 3. Destroy all creatures with toughness 4 or greater.
Well, that does hit Sam.
Oh, whoops, never mind.
The hobbits have high toughnesses, but I mean, yeah, it's not
those
bad.
hobbits and their big butts and their big feet.
Yeah.
Never mind.
But I do run a lot of targeted removal. I mean, the idea with all of these categories is to, you can't run more than 100 cards. So you need to find cards that can do more than one thing, like removal and card draw, ramp and card draw, whatever. So a lot of my removal, like I'm just popping over, looking at my Geshaft deck. I have Scion of Calamity. He's a green 3, dinosaur 5/5, myriad. When he deals combat damage to a player, destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. Geshaft hits that. I'm already like swinging to attack. So it's doing what the deck wants to, and I'm also getting additional value on top of that. So you gotta kind of try to get as much value in one card as you can. That's why power creep is as strong as it is.
I actually think that's a perfect segue to the next category. And the next category is your theme, your synergy, whatever your commander is doing. In general, we put 30 cards in this category. And that means that this category is whatever you want, whatever your commander wants to be doing. Do you want to be playing lots of small creatures? Do you want to be doing the dinosaur thing? Whatever you want to be doing. And I will say that at every chance you can, these other 3 categories, ramp, card draw, removal, if you can, you should find cards that run double duty with your themes.
Yep,
so
definitely.
Scryfall is an amazing tool for doing that. If I want to find a ramp spell, I can search, I can go to text and put search library land +1/+1 counter. And I can find cards that do both. At every opportunity, you should try to find cards that are doing both your theme and these other core categories.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd add on theme is that, you're probably going to have pet cards and all of that, but you do want to make sure that your theme curves out with your ramp, your commander, and your removal. You want to be hitting your theme a turn at a time where you're able to see a wide variety of cards in a row. Normally, themes are very synergistic. If all you do is play one creature on turn 4 and it gets caught up in the next board wipe, and then you don't play your next thing until turn 6 because most of your theme cards are 5, 6, or 7 mana, I'm not going to really be able to tell what you're doing, and you're not going to feel like you're doing the thing. You want stuff that goes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so that you have a chance for them all to interact with each other, and you can feel like you're doing the thing. That's true for all these categories. We'll talk more about curving out within the categories on the next show with me and Derek. But just as far as your theme goes, just make sure it's fitting in with the other stuff you're doing. If you're playing a lot of 2-mana ramp, then you can have a lot of 4-mana theme cards because 2 goes to 4 mana on turn 3. And so that, again, ties into your commander. If your commander sets up your theme, you want theme cards that maybe are more expensive than your commander. If your commander relies on having support cards in play, you want theme cards that are less expensive than your commander.
That's right. Yeah, so, go back and listen to the deck tech with John Irenicus. And Benjamin makes a very clear point of saying, these cards cost 3 so that when I play John on turn 4, he has something to give away.
Yes.
So, John costs 4, and so building up through the curve really, really matters because John Irenicus has to have something already on your board to do something.
Yeah, if you play him on turn 4 and all you did was ramp on turn 2, if you tap land turn 1, ramp on turn 2, John Irenicus on turn 3, he's just a 2/2 do nothing.
Yeah, I would not do that. I think I'd rather I would almost rather sit shields down than put John out there for execution.
So,
with no support or nothing to give away or nothing to do. Anyway, last category. Benjamin, take us home.
All right, the last category is the one that makes your deck run. It is the lands. A lot of people consider them the most boring part of a deck, and I get it, but it's the way Magic is designed. It relies on lands and the ability to play 1 per turn to be able to cast your spells. Generally, we start at about 40 lands. If your curve is lower, you can go down to 36. I do have one very, very low curve deck that I go all the way down to 28, but I would not suggest that for a newer player, even if you have a low curve, because most new players don't know how to guess what a low curve is. And so you want to have the lands to play your spells. It sucks to get stuck with cards that you can't play. So you can, if you're playing a lot of ramp, you can go down on lands a little bit more to make room for that, because those cards will take the place of a certain amount of lands. If your theme is lands or your curve is especially high, just err on the side of more lands. I was theory crafting a deck earlier today, and my current target is 44 lands for this deck. And why? Because I'm planning to play a bunch of 7-drop.
Oh my gosh.
The guys have not heard about this deck yet. Hopefully I can get it built in the next few weeks. But, I mean, you got to do stuff like that because I want to play the 7-drops. And so...
Yeah, if your curve is high or the theme itself is lands, and guys out there, if you're looking for lands to be the theme, that makes for very powerful decks. Go into Scryfall and use the keyword landfall, and you'll find just about everything you'll probably want to include.
Yeah, I have a Lord Windgrace deck that cares about land cards going to the graveyard and coming back from the graveyard, and it plays 45 lands because I need them. And
need them
if
all.
I don't have them, the deck will not do a thing. It won't do anything at all. And a lot of the lands in that deck actually don't make mana, or only make mana if there's other lands to get. Tons of fetch lands. It's playing Maze of Ith, which doesn't make mana. It's playing Dark Depths, which doesn't make mana. So it really needs, as many lands as it can get to do stuff like that.
So we will do a part 2 where we talk about things like card advantage, where we talk about things like curves and some other deck building concepts and deck playing concepts. But this is the template. There are 100 cards in a commander deck, and if you go down the numbers and categories, ramp 10, card draw 10, removal 10, theme 30, so that puts us at 60, and then lands start at 40, and then go down to a minimum of 36 depending on your curve. And again, this is for beginner. And that's 100. That's 100. You're going to have to take one from one category for your commander, but that's it. That's 100 cards. And like we've been saying throughout, you might tweak or -1 from one category in order to +1 from another, depending on your game plan or your preferences or the power level of your meta and things like that. But this is a very close template to what I use. We might even do an episode about deck building process, like what you guys think of or find first as you're building. But anyway, is there anything you guys want to add to the deck building template?
I think this is a good place to start.
No.
For sure.
Yeah, and honestly, I think you'll be surprised at how good your decks will be if you just follow the template. This is how I started building decks early on, before the other guys knew about the right ways to build decks, and my decks were consistently better than theirs. And it wasn't until they got good at building decks that we kind of leveled the playing field. And I didn't know as much about deck building then as I know now, but I was just following this very basic template. I was doing 5 spot removal, 5 board wipes, 10 card draw, 10 ramp, and 40 lands, and 1 commander. And that's literally what I was doing. And if you follow that, maybe it won't be perfectly refined, it won't be tweaked, but you'll never build below a 6 power level.
I agree. I agree with that. I can really vividly remember discovering the Command Zone podcast for the first time and listening to a deck building template episode very similar to what we're doing now. And it was a level up moment for me. My decks leaped forward in power level compared to what they were before. I had never heard of ramp before.
Oh, well, that'll do it.
So I'm like, I have 37, or at the time it was probably like, I have 34 lands. Why can't I cast these 8 drops? And it's like if every third card is a land, you shouldn't, and you've got 9 cards that cost 8. Like just the math is not going to math out to consistently, is your game going to go 8 turns even? Things like that. So a deck building template will hopefully be a level up moment, and that's what we hope we've done with this deck building template. Benjamin, was that your words of wisdom?
Yeah. Yep, that'll count.
Derek, Randy, any final words?
Nothing from me.
Just make sure you build a deck that you're going to have fun with. That's the important part.
Aw, that was sweet, Randy. That was adorable. Okay, Derek, where can people find our Patreon?
In hell. Bye.
No! I'm trying to do that thing where I let other people give our social media coordinates, where I kind of bounce around the hosts so that everybody can say one.
You can find us at patreon.com/mymythicalmeta.
Perfect. Randy, what email address can they send to contact us directly?
You can find it at mymythicalmeta@eldoradogaming.com.
And Benjamin, what promo code can people use at eldoradogaming.com for their shiny dice and playmats and other gaming accessories?
Use promo code META for 10% off your order.
Alright guys, thank you very much. Thank you guys for being my great friends. Love you guys, bye.
Bye.
Later.
Peace out.
This episode was sponsored by Eldorado Gaming. Use the promo code META for 10% off your order. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. This episode was edited by me, Travis Konishek, and our intro and outro music is by Tyler Heath of the Oh Hellos.